reference angle is the acute angle theta prime formed by the terminal side of theta and the horizontal axis. First quadrant, theta is equal to theta prime. Second quadrant, theta prime is equal to 180 minus theta. Third quadrant, the reference angle theta prime is equal to theta minus 180 degrees. Fourth quadrant, the reference angle theta prime is equal to 360 degrees minus theta. This table is a summary of what we just learned. Feel free to pause the tape and look at the information. Now, if sine theta is positive, cosine theta negative, what quadrant does angle theta lie in? Sine is positive in the first quadrant and in the second quadrant. Sine represents y. Cosine theta is less than 0, negative, in the second and in the third quadrant. Cosine represents x, and that angle must be in the second quadrant, the quadrant in which sine is positive and cosine is negative. Cotangent is negative in the second and in the third quadrant. Remember, cotangent is cosine over sine. Secant, which is 1 over cosine, is negative in the second and in the third quadrant. Now, cotangent is negative and secant is negative in the second quadrant. Cosine, we saw it earlier, is positive in the first and the fourth quadrant. Cosine x positive, so the angle must be located in either the first or the fourth quadrant. Tangent is positive, the angle must be located either the first or the third quadrant. So that angle is located in Q1, where cosine is greater than 0 and tangent is greater than 0. We're going to use reference angles to evaluate sine 120 degrees. Sine 120 degrees is located in the second quadrant. So the reference angle will be theta prime is equal to 180 degrees minus 120. So theta prime is equal to 60 degrees. Now, sine 120 will be equal to sine 60 degrees because sine is positive in both first and second quadrant. And sine 60 is, from the reference triangle, square root of 3 over 2. So sine 60 is equal to square root of 3 over 2. 225 degrees. 225 is an angle located in the third quadrant. First, we're going to look for the reference angle. And with the reference angle, we're going to calculate cosine of 225. The reference angle, if the angle is located in the third quadrant, will be the angle itself minus 180 degrees. So theta prime, the reference angle, is equal to 45 degrees. Now cosine is negative in the third quadrant. Therefore, cosine 225 is equal to negative cosine 45. Negative cosine 45 degrees. Using the reference triangle, we get negative 1 over square root of 2, or when we rationalize, negative square root of 2 over 2. Now we're going to use reference angles to evaluate cotangent 4 pi over 3. The angles are given in radians measure. 4 pi over 3 is really 3 pi over 3 plus pi over 3. Therefore, it's equal to pi plus pi over 3. This is a third quadrant angle. The reference angle then will be the angle itself for third pi minus pi, 180 degrees. Theta prime is equal to pi over 3. Now, cotangent is positive if the angle is located in the third quadrant. Cotangent is cosine over sine, and cotangent pi over 3, cotangent 4 pi over 3 is equal to cotangent pi over 3, because we are in the third quadrant, and cotangent 4 pi over 3 will be equal to the adjacent 1 over the opposite, square root of 3. When rationalized, square root of 3 over 3. 7 pi over 4 is equal to 4 pi over 4 plus 3 pi over 4, and 4 pi over 4 is pi, plus 3 pi over 4. 7 pi over 4 is a fourth quadrant angle. Now we're going to look for the reference angle. The reference angle, theta prime, is equal to 2 pi minus 7 pi over 4. Theta prime is equal to, well, 2 pi is 8 pi over 4. 8 pi over 4 when we multiply by 4 over 4 minus 7 pi over 4. Theta prime is equal to pi over 4. Now cosecant, which is 1 over sine, cosecant 7 pi over 4 will be equal to negative cosecant pi over 4, because cosecant is negative in the third and fourth quadrant. Cosecant theta is equal to 1 over sine theta, and sine theta is negative in the fourth quadrant. So cosecant pi over 4 is equal to negative, and what is the value of cosecant pi over 4? Square root of 2 over 1.